The wait is finally over. NBA preseason is here, and for Celtics fans, that means the speculation, the endless breakdowns of every single training camp quote, and the over-analysis of practice footage can finally take a back seat. Tonight marks the unofficial beginning of the new season as Boston takes the floor against the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Ja Morant won't be playing. He's out with injury and already listed week to week, but that's not going to take away from the excitement of finally getting to see this revamped Celtics roster in action. And let's be honest, after months of obsessing over hypothetical rotations and player quotes about effort and chemistry, it's just refreshing to shift from theory to actual gameplay. That's what makes this preseason opener feel bigger than just an exhibition. This is the first look at what Joe Mazzulla's squad might actually look like in motion. And while we're not going to get extended minutes from the core guys, expect something in the range of 14 to 18 minutes for most starters unless Mazzulla goes full sicko mode. It's still enough time to start seeing signs of how the team is beginning to take shape. One of the big storylines tonight, and throughout the preseason, revolves around Anthony Simons. Now, Simons is in a contract year, and the dialogue coming out of Celtics camp has been interesting. Simons himself has openly acknowledged that defense comes down to effort, and that he's now excited to try. While that's a somewhat encouraging quote on the surface, it also raises a red flag, because if effort was all it took, then why wasn't he already putting in before? Especially when you consider he was part of a team in Portland that, at least during the latter part of last season, was one of the better defensive units in the league. Defense is not an individual effort. It's built on chemistry, communication, and cohesion. When five guys move as one, think of an amoeba shifting on the floor. You can mask a lot of individual deficiencies. And if Simons is finally buying into that approach, even marginal improvement on that end could significantly raise his ceiling. Now, let's not get carried away. No one's saying that Anthony Simons is about to lock up the league and land on an all-defensive team. That's just not realistic. But if he can stop being a net negative on that side of the ball, if he can at least hold his own, fight through screens, rotate on time, and stay in front of average assignments, then we're talking about a player who becomes much more valuable, especially in high-leverage situations. The challenge here is that Simons is in a tricky spot. If he performs too well, shows flashes of real defensive improvement, and keeps up his offensive production, efficient shooting, solid playmaking, smart decision-making, then he's going to get paid. Maybe not by Boston, but definitely by someone. He becomes a premium asset in a league constantly hunting for offensive firepower that can survive defensively. But ironically, if he doesn't quite reach that level, if he shows just enough to stay interesting but not enough to command a big payday, then the Celtics might be more inclined to keep him around. It's a weird kind of catch-22 where Simons fans might need to hope he's just average enough to stay in green. That's one of the bigger things to watch during these preseason games, how Simons responds when the lights come on. He said the right things. The question now is whether he'll do the right things when the game starts moving at full speed. And remember, everything out of Celtics camp this offseason has centered around pace, conditioning, and intensity. They've been calling it a track meet, saying this isn't basketball, this is sprinting. That's a tone setter from the coaching staff. So if Simons is buying into that identity, we'll start to see it show up in how he defends on ball and how he recovers off switches. The other area that's going to be fascinating is the big man rotation. With the departure of veteran size and some shifting pieces in the frontcourt, it sounds like Nemias Queta, affectionately dubbed the Portuguese Prince, is getting first crack at carving out a real role. Now, anyone who watched Eurobasket last summer saw flashes of what Queta can bring. He had moments holding his own against legit NBA bigs like Nikola Jokic and Kristaps Porzingis. But international basketball is a different game. The spacing, the tempo, the role he played, it's not a one-to-one translation to the NBA, and definitely not to what the Celtics will ask of him. So, the big question, can Queta grasp the defensive concepts Mazzulla needs him to understand? Can he stay locked in with help side rotations, weak side contests, and vertical rim protection without fouling? Because the last thing Boston needs is their coach tearing his hair out over missed assignments from a young and proven big. Still, Queta has upside. And with the Celtics desperate for size and rim protection off the bench, they may give him some leeway to learn on the job, at least for now. But who's next in line? The depth chart isn't crystal clear. Will they experiment with Chris Boucher at the 5 for small ball stretches? Boucher brings floor spacing and energy, and while he's probably not built to anchor a defense full-time at center, in short bursts against second units, that could be something Boston tests out. Then there's Luka Garza and Xavier Tillman, two very different bigs, both fighting for minutes. Tillman's been getting some buzz during camp, but there's a caveat. When you really break down his comments about being healthy this year, what he's saying is the swelling in his knee has gone down, not that it's gone. There's a difference. That's something to monitor. As for Garza, he's another stretch big option, but might be lower in the pecking order unless he has a standout preseason showing. And we haven't even touched on the battle at the 4. Who gets the nod as the starting power forward? There's been a lot of debate between Hauer and Boucher, and the fan base seems split. Hauer's been talking about stepping up his shooting and becoming more than just a role player, while Boucher brings that defensive versatility and energy that fits nicely with Boston's switching schemes. But no matter who gets the starting job, there are going to be defensive concerns. This team lost some reliable pieces on that end, and replacing them won't be a one-player job. It'll take system buy-in and communication. Even outside of the primary rotation, there are some younger names worth watching. Jordan Walsh has reportedly been lighting it up from deep in workouts, calling himself a sniper. Whether that translates into actual game action remains to be seen, but he's clearly oozing confidence. And at just 21 years old, he still has room to grow, especially compared to someone like Baylor Shyman, despite having less NBA mileage, is already 25. That matters when projecting future roles. If the preseason becomes a proving ground for that final wing rotation spot, it feels like Walsh has the edge in both upside and timeline alignment with the rest of the roster. The point is, this Celtics preseason isn't just about warming up. It's about getting real answers to open questions. Volatile decisions could make a huge difference. While Celtics fans are zeroed in on what Boston's doing in preseason, there's no denying that some of the biggest storylines affecting the team's future are unfolding around the league, particularly in the Eastern Conference. And right now, all eyes are drifting toward the chaos that might be quietly building in New York and Milwaukee. Let's start with the Knicks. A fresh report just dropped revealing that they were in serious trade talks with the Bucks for Giannis Antetokounmpo over the summer. Not just casual, let's see what happens interest. We're talking legitimate, prolonged discussions that could have shifted the balance of power in the East. Now, think about the timing of this news. It comes out right before the season starts. And if you're a believer in locker room chemistry, this could be more than just a footnote. Because for a trade like that to even be on the table, there had to be big names involved. Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Two of those three were almost certainly going the other way. That's a major shift. And even if the trade didn't happen, the mere fact that those conversations were happening has ripple effects. It plants doubt. It gets guys thinking about their future, their value to the organization. And that's not ideal when you're trying to build trust and continuity at the start of a new season. The Knicks are already dealing with internal shakeups. Josh Hart, who saw himself as a starter, has been moved to a bench role. Karl Anthony Towns is an emotional guy. We've seen that throughout his career. You think he's not thinking about the fact that he was nearly shipped out before playing a single game in New York? That stuff lingers. And as much as the front office might try to spin it as business as usual, players talk. Players know. If you're trying to chase a top 4 seed in the East, these distractions matter. They might not ruin a season, but they can absolutely limit a team's ceiling, especially when the margins between contenders are razor thin. And then there's Milwaukee. Let's not forget that this is a team with an entirely new coaching staff, a reworked roster, and the pressure of keeping Giannis happy long-term. Doc Rivers is now running the show, and before the games have even started, he's made it crystal clear that Kevin Porter Jr. is the team's starting point guard, no matter how well anyone else plays. That's not just a vote of confidence in KPJ. It's also a subtle message to the rest of the roster. Roles are set, whether you like it or not. And that kind of rigidity can backfire if the team stumbles early. Then you've got Kyle Kuzma, who's reportedly been bricking everything in training camp. And the Bucks are clearly going to be relying on him heavily. It's not ideal when one of your key offensive pieces can't find a rhythm this early. They're also putting a lot of pressure on role players like AJ Green to step up. And yes, they made some solid additions like Miles Turner, but if the chemistry doesn't click early, the whispers are going to get louder, especially around Giannis. Let's be real. Just because he didn't force his way out this summer doesn't mean that storyline is over. Not even close. If the Bucks struggle, if they fall behind in the standings or deal with injuries again, Giannis has the leverage and the track record to say, I gave a shot. Now it's time to move on. And when that happens, it won't be subtle. It'll be loud, and it'll send shockwaves through the league. Teams like Houston are already circling. The Rockets have the assets, the young talent, and yes, the financial tools to make a blockbuster happen if Giannis puts pressure on Milwaukee again. The Fred VanVleet contract, the collection of draft picks, names like Tari Eason, it's all sitting there, ready to be activated. So for Celtics fans, even if Boston doesn't finish at the top of the standings, watching the Bucks and Knicks implode would be a gift. It's not always about how dominant you are. Sometimes it's about your competition falling apart. And in a year where Boston might float between the 6th and 8th seed, these internal meltdowns from other contenders could open up a more favorable playoff path. That's the nature of the East right now, volatile, unpredictable, and filled with talented teams just one bad month away from panic mode. Switching gears for a moment, let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. This team is cursed. Year after year, it's like they can't catch a break. And this season's already off to a disastrous start. Ja Morant is injured again, week to week with an ankle issue. That's on top of the suspension he's already serving. Zach Edey's going to miss time, Brandon Clark's still out, and the depth chart is looking thin. It's turning into another one of those years for Memphis where they're just trying to survive instead of contend. And it's a shame because there's talent there. But when your core pieces can't stay on the floor, there's not much you can do. It's only October, and they already feel like a team spiraling toward another lost season. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Breaking news is shaking the NBA world. The Boston Celtics have reportedly pulled off a stunning move, acquiring Walker Kessler in what insiders are calling a masterstroke to reinforce their frontcourt. Rumors suggest that the Celtics, long criticized for lacking dominance in the paint, are now aggressively positioning themselves as contenders by bolstering their roster with one of the league's most promising young big men. Sources close to the organization hint that this deal was far from casual. The Celtics, known for their strategic trades and calculated risks, allegedly saw Kessler as the perfect piece to secure the interior and protect the rim, a move that could dramatically alter the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. With Kessler's shot-blocking ability and rebounding presence, Boston appears determined to address its long-standing weakness under the basket, a vulnerability that often haunted them in the playoffs. While official confirmations are yet to come, whispers around league circles suggest the Celtics may have had to give up significant assets to make this happen. Speculation is rife over which players or picks were involved, fueling excitement and a little anxiety among fans. If the rumors prove true, Boston could have not only strengthened its defense, but also sent the Milwaukee Bucks and Philadelphia 76ers. The Celtics are here to dominate inside. Analysts are already debating the potential impact. Could Kessler's addition be the missing link that propels Boston to a championship? Some argue that pairing him with the current roster could create one of the most formidable frontcourts in the league, combining athleticism, rim protection, and scoring versatility. Others caution that integration will take time, and chemistry remains a question mark, as is always the case with mid-season shakeups. Whatever the truth, Celtics fans are buzzing. Social media is ablaze with reactions, memes, and predictions, turning Kessler's rumored arrival into the talk of the town. If finalized, this could mark the start of a new era in Boston, a team finally ready to dominate both ends of the floor, with KESSLER anchoring a reimagined paint presence. One thing is certain. The Celtics front court is no longer just a question mark. It's a storyline everyone in the league will be watching closely. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.